Finance Committee hearing. My name is Julissa Ferreras Copeland. I am the chair of the committee. I want to begin by thanking my co-chair, Majority Leader Jimmy Van Bramer, and council members Andy King. He's not here. Where's Andy? Okay. Can we make sure we... We've been joined by council members, Minority Leader Mario, Council Member Koo, and Council Member Cornegie. This morning, the committee continues its look at fiscal 2018's executive budget with our city's 3 library systems. We will hear testimony from the New York Public Library President and CEO, Tony Marks, Queens Public Library President and CEO, Dennis Walcott, and Brooklyn Public Library President and CEO, Linda Johnson. I'll begin with an overview of the library's budget for fiscal 2018, which totals $365.9 million. This is a decrease of approximately $791,000 from fiscal year 2017's adopted budget. The Executive 2018 Capital Commitment Plan includes $976.4 million in fiscal 2017 to 2021 for the library system, which is 4% greater than the amount included in the preliminary plan. The 10-year capital strategy for the libraries totals $604.2 million, a $44.9 million increase over the preliminary strategy. With nearly all this funding allocated for critical reconstruction of facilities. With nearly 40 million visitors a year, our library branches face significant renovations and repair needs. All 3 library systems have frequently highlighted the challenge of maintaining an aging infrastructure while accommodating the increased demanded for services. The Council's budget response urged the administration to add an additional $40 million to the budget of each library system to meet these critical maintenance needs. Unfortunately, the executive plan fails to include those important funds. We will continue to push the administration to establish an annual capital funding level that allows the libraries to address their most important needs immediately, rather than having the work done bit by bit over a long period. I also want to address an issue that has been brought up frequently during the budget cycle. The administration's executive capital commitment plan continues its reoccurring practice of front-loading its capital appropriations in a manner that does not correspond with the actual ability to execute these projects. This is particularly significant when it comes to the capital plan for libraries. For example, in fiscal 2016, the library system only committed 7.1% of its annual capital plan. $28.7 million of planned $407 million. We therefore assume that a significant portion of the fiscal 2017's capital plan will be rolled into fiscal 2018. We will continue to strongly urge the administration to increase transparency and accountability when it comes to capital projects through more realistic budgeting. A significant part of this discrepancy, however, can be attributed to the significant problems we see in the capital construction process for our city libraries. Despite the pressing needs of maintenance and repairs that I mentioned, library projects managed by the Department of Design and Construction tend to take much longer to complete at a significantly larger cost than other capital projects. This can force months, even years of closures, denying New Yorkers their vital programming offered by the system. As I highlighted during DDC's preliminary budget hearing, I expressed this with the East Elmhurst Library in my district, where work only recently began after years of unnecessary delays. It is long past due that DDC take a concrete step to improve its performance when it comes to these essential community resources. I look forward to hearing from the city's 3 library systems about these issues and more at today's hearing. Before turning it over to my co-chairs, I want to thank the finance staff that helped prepare for this hearing: Regina Parita-Ryan, Nathan Toth, John Russell, Alia Ali. I know what that feels like with a name like Ferreras. And Eric Bernstein. I will now turn it over to Chairs Van Bramer and King for their opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I just want to salute you and your strength. I know you have been daily chairing probably 100 hours of testimony. I also want to thank all of you for being here today and for joining us this morning. And it's a lot cooler here than when we last met, wasn't it? Also want to encourage you, as someone in the balcony knows that we don't clap here, but if you agree with something that we say, we all do this, right? So does everyone believe we need 7-day service? Right? Does everyone believe we need more in capital funding for libraries? So feel free to do that on your own as we go through this hearing. So I just want to say it's great to be here once again. I'm very, very pleased that working together with the chair, with the speaker, and the mayor, we have done amazing work for our libraries, right? We have restored 6-day service and baselined 6-day service. But we still need to go further. Our libraries are so incredibly important, more important than ever, and we need them to continue to be open and accessible when New Yorkers so desperately need you, library workers, to help them through whatever information gathering pursuit they're engaged in, or what you also increasingly see are real important struggles that people are going through in their daily lives, and libraries are there to meet those needs in a time that's really frightening for a lot of people who need our libraries, who go to our libraries every single day. And you are that sanctuary. You are that place, really the heart of what we call sanctuary cities. Libraries have always been that first place of refuge. That inspiration. So I want to thank all the library workers who are here, and also say that the push for 7-day service is a good and valid one, but we also know that having the libraries open is just the first part of the struggle, making sure that they are in good state of repair, they are well maintained, that there aren't leaky roofs, and that the air conditioning works in the summer and the heat works in the winter. Those are incredibly important. Do you believe that our libraries should be in good working order, that we should have air conditioning in the summer, heat in the winter, libraries that don't leak, children's rooms that don't have mold? These are the issues that we face, and this is why it is so critically important to meet the need. And I'm really proud of our council. The budget response to the mayor did include $120 million in critical capital repair needs. That should be in this budget. Our response did call for the necessary funds to implement full 7-day service in the city of New York. We are going to continue in this fight with our 3 president and CEOs, but also all of you, the heart and soul of our library system. So thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us on this blazingly hot day on the steps of City Hall earlier for our very inspiring rally and press conference. And I look forward to hearing the testimony and engaging in a question and answer session. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Chair King.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair Perez Copeland. Oh, I'm supposed to be on that side? Oh, okay. Oh, I just followed the sign. But today it's a good day and it's a sad day as well, because again we're here having this conversation that we need not have, especially in 90 degrees. To the Chair, Van Bramer, for your diligence and your commitment and fight over the last 18 to 19 years, I commend you for your passion in making sure that everyone that wears the color orange is in good favor when it comes to our libraries. So I thank you, as well as our Finance Chair, who is the energized bunny for the budget season, and I give you more blessings and strength during this fiscal year 2018. But I would like to say I am a little saddened, as many of us are, to see that the administration did not add the additional $34 million in expense funding, as well as the $120 million in capital funding as recommended by the council in the preliminary budget response. However, this is an ongoing discussion with the administration. I'm looking forward to us finalizing a budget over the next couple of months that meets the needs of all 3 of the systems. As a system, as our system is vital to our city, public libraries provide a broad range of services to New Yorkers. This goes beyond access to books. New York City's libraries are more accessible for patrons when they need them most. Working parents who get home late from work need to go with their children on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday morning, or our busy professionals who try to find time to get to a library for the services that are being provided. Our library system provides a range of programs to the community and participate in a variety of initiatives such as adult basic education, early childhood literacy initiatives, and broadband technology opportunity programs. It is therefore essential that the libraries or systems are fully funded. In a few minutes, I know we're going to hear from the three systems on specific plans for the allocated budget. I hope to hear specifically from President's Row over there, specific updates on new programs that will launch, updates on performance measures and targets on how libraries have implemented the City Council's initiatives. I also would like the libraries to update the council on major capital projects and highlight it in their capital plan. I know that's going to be a spirited conversation for us all to hear. I hope as we move through the budget process, we can move towards the 10-year capital plan and expense budget plan, which is more in tune with the needs of the library system and one that gives library a chance to meet the growing demands of New Yorkers. We must acknowledge the accomplishment of the library systems and the significant impact they make in the communities in terms of education, culture enhancement, and safety net for New Yorkers by providing them with adequate capital funding that will help them continue tremendous work that they do for our community. In closing, I'd like to thank all the committee staff here and my staff for helping putting this hearing together, but I also want to add this piece. This morning, we all stood out there in the blazing heat with a passion and commitment to improve the library systems. We are all on the same page. You have advocates all that are up here to do all that we can to improve our libraries. I ask us in the council and I ask the administration that we do something differently in our executive budget hearings, because the conversations that we have with them, sometimes they're not able to answer. Maybe we need to have the administration or OMB be in the room to have the real answers to the questions that we need to have answers, so they can't say, we don't have the answer, that guy has the answer, and they're never in the room for this conversation. So with that all being said, in the future, I'm hoping that we can have that kind of conversation, because we are all on the same page in improving our libraries in the city of New York. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair King. Yes, this is always an awkward hearing because we're kind of saying the same things back and forth to each other. But we have to get these things on the record so that we can push back on OMB and deliver and use this to negotiate and also to get information for the record. So with that being said, my counsel is going to swear you in. Oh, we don't even need to swear you in because we believe you. This one is different, I said, right? Please, you can begin in the order that you have decided already, and we will gladly listen to your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, other chairs, members of the City Council. So here we are, in a year in which New Yorkers need more and deserve more on so many fronts. And the one place, the one institution in every neighborhood that they look to meet those needs in larger number than any other are their public and local libraries. That's true for the kids who need literacy help or in pre-K. It's true for the kids trying to do better at school, after school, homework help. It's true for our homeless. It's true for our job seekers. It's true for our parents and grandparents. It's true for all New Yorkers. In larger numbers than any other institution in this city, they come to and depend upon their libraries. We need to meet those needs. We are your instrument, your most effective instrument to meet those needs, because we are committed to serving all the people of this city. We know that this City Council understands all of that. You have made that commitment clear. You have ensured citywide 6-day service You have kept our doors open longer and allowed us to plan important renovations in our branches. But more needs to be done. As we have all said, we were disappointed that the libraries were not included in the mayor's executive budget on either the capital or the expense side. At a moment when the educational and digital and economic divide is growing in this amazing city, we need to push back. We need to use the libraries to push back, to provide its affordable and essential services, to partner with our colleagues in the administration of the city and with non-government organizations and others, which we are eager to do. Because we all know that when people come to the library, people learn, people grow, people are stronger, our communities are stronger, our democracy is stronger. What could be more important than that at this moment? So we've come to you to say we need $150 million in capital funding for critical maintenance needs. And we're asking for $34 million of additional operating to increase the number of libraries open 7 days. I'm sorry, this is pretty straightforward. This is New York. We're talking about our neighbors, our citizens. We shouldn't have to be asking that our libraries be open on 7 days. Most New Yorkers are working hard. They can't get to the library during the week. They need our essential services. Every neighborhood in this city, every city council member's district should have at least one library open on Sundays, so that all the things that we do can be made available to the people who can only get there. Right now, only about 93% of the city's branches are closed on either Saturday or Sunday. That's outrageous. Think about the immigrant families, the working families who that excludes. And we are asking for capital projects because we know the return on those is so high. For instance, the Stapleton Library, a high-needs area in Staten Island, fully renovated in 2013, we saw program attendance increase 177%. Just last week, we reopened the 103-year-old Woodstock Library in the poorest congressional district in the United States of America. And we expect to see, having doubled that space, we'll be adding program, we will see similar results. The doors need to be open, and the buildings need to be in good shape. Again, in New York, at this moment, to say we need to ensure that the roofs aren't leaking, that our great library staff aren't spending their time dealing with the crises of the building. That shouldn't be necessary. It's time to renew, and we've issued a report on that front. We remind our colleagues throughout the city of the agreement that this city made with Andrew Carnegie over 100 years ago, a contract that said we will be open and we will provide the services that Carnegie, as a young poor boy in Scotland, understood were essential. If we're fixing leaks and caulking windows all the time, have HVAC out, we can't do our work. And there are too many examples of this. The West Farms Library in the Bronx. We have to cover our children's room computers every time it rains with a tarp. Excuse me. At the County Cullen Library in Harlem, only 1 in 4 of the boilers work. So we use space heaters that we plug in, and it blows the 100-year-old electric system. In New Brighton in Staten Island, we have no spaces for the essential growing educational programs that teens or kids depend on. We have been your partners. We've been partners with the mayor. This is the moment to continue the momentum of what you have done. And we are eager to continue to be your partners in that. We're grateful for everything that's brought us to here, but we should not be still faced with the situations that our citizens, our patrons, are faced with. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. And thank all of you, Majority Leader in Cultural Affairs and Libraries Chair Van Bramer, Library Subcommittee King, Finance Committee Chair Ferraris Copeland, our fabulous Brooklyn delegation, and the entire City Council for supporting New York City's libraries. As Tony said, it is imperative that we build on the progress set in motion 2 years ago when you made it possible for us to provide universal 6-day service. More people are coming to the library than ever before, and their needs are more diverse and more complex than at any time in recent memory. But unfortunately, our ability to serve the public is greatly compromised by the physical state of our buildings, most of which are plagued by maintenance issues and equipment failures, not to mention dismal interiors. The capital budget request we submit today is actually $150 million for the 3 library systems in fiscal year 2018, and this is $30 million more than the request we submitted in March. We have increased our request by $10 million for each system because thus far the administration has not included additional funding for libraries in the current 10-year capital plan. Our inclusion in the last 10-year plan 2 years ago was encouraging, and we remain grateful to the administration and to Council. But that investment amounted to less than 1/4 of our total capital need. Each library system needs $50 million this year to fix failing infrastructure and replace equipment long past its useful life. You have heard us speak many times about the specific challenges in our branches. In fact, you have seen these challenges yourselves and have tried with your own discretionary funds to help us fix them, and for that we are also grateful. If you have read the Time to Renew report published earlier this week, you know, for example, that at Pacific Library in Boerum Hill, staff and patrons shout over noisy portable chillers, a makeshift replacement for the branch's failed air conditioning system. Pacific is also virtually inaccessible to people with mobility impairments, not to mention parents and caregivers with strollers. Time to Renew also highlights Saratoga Library in Bushwick, where patrons who cannot negotiate stairs must ride a rickety lift barely big enough for 2. And I'm sure you have encountered similar issues at branches in your own districts. At our current level of capital funding, it is difficult for libraries to address any but the most urgent problems. We spend much of our time and resources responding to emergencies. Chronic underfunding also makes it impossible for us to manage capital projects efficiently. Urgently needed improvements are often delayed over the slightest change in scope because we are not able to address routine adjustments and overruns with dollars budgeted for the coming year. We simply do not have that kind of flexibility. As a result, even funded projects cannot be completed within a remotely reasonable time frame. This is currently the case at 3 branches in need of new heating and cooling systems. Projects at the Bushwick and Ryder libraries that were funded in 2015 have stalled due to shortfalls of $1.3 and $1.1 million respectively, while at the Cypress Hills branch, an HVAC replacement funded in 2014 has been delayed because of a nearly $2 million gap. In total, we face shortfalls of more than $34 million on 40 projects throughout the borough. We have projects planned for nearly half of our libraries that are on hold or in danger of being delayed, and the problem worsens with each passing day. Brooklyn Public Library receives approximately $10 to $15 million in discretionary capital funds annually to care for an aging physical plant of over 1.1 million square feet. This is not enough to cover half of what we need to finish work that has been funded for years, though as it turns out, not sufficiently funded. In Brooklyn, we are responding to capital challenges with creative solutions. New library projects in Sunset Park, Greenpoint, Brower Park, and Brooklyn Heights will wipe out tens of millions in unfunded capital needs. Revenue from the sale of Brooklyn Heights Library will allow us to improve several branches that are in bad need of repair. But there is a limit to what we can do on our own. Libraries need your help, and we have proven that with sufficient resources, we can care for our buildings and enhance the quality of our patrons' experiences. At Kingsbridge Library in the Bronx, circulation is up 76%, and program attendance has increased 90% after a full branch renovation. In Queens, teen program attendance has nearly doubled with the opening of a new teen center at Cambria Heights Library. Young adult circulation is up 29%. In Brooklyn, we partnered with Spaceworks to renovate the second floor of Williamsburg Library to build affordable artists' studios and performance spaces. More people are coming to the branch, taking advantage of programs offered by the resident artists. And circulation is up as well. By offering non-traditional library services in a beautifully renovated space, we are able to reach more people with core services like book lending and literacy programs. We have seen similar success at Arlington Library in Cypress Hills, where overall attendance increased by 1/3 and program attendance rose by an astonishing 163%, with the opening of a passport office and a new adult programming space. In all 5 boroughs and across all 3 systems, libraries are an excellent investment. By supporting our capital request for $150 million for the 3 library systems this year, you will be investing not only in our buildings, but more importantly, in the people who use them. As you consider requests from many worthy organizations and agencies, I hope you will remember the millions of New Yorkers who visit our branches every year. We are their representatives, and therefore it is our responsibility to advocate for them. Our patrons need libraries that are open 7 days a week. They should be able to check out books and attend programs in buildings with functional HVAC systems and watertight roofs. They deserve spaces and collections that inspire them to do their best thinking. And most of all, they deserve to love coming to the library. We thank you on behalf of the patrons who are here with us today and the millions more who will benefit if the city supports our requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, and good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here. To the chairs Ferreras Copeland, Van Bramer, and King, and the members of the City Council, I thank you for your leadership, and we appreciate everything you do. And you've heard this before, and so I will not be redundant, but I'm going to go off script because it's important for you to really get the true feel as well as what you know very well. One day last week, I was standing outside of our Central Library and just hanging outside for a moment, and I was talking to one of my colleagues, and I just realized who we are and what we represent for the people of New York City. I was watching the diversity of the individuals walking in our doors. I was watching the people who had a need for either books or to use the computers to get a class, to find out information, to go to our Job Business Academy, to get some career guidance. And it really struck me on we are open to all people. I mean, when you really think about it, you think about any institution in New York City, how many of them can say their doors open free of charge, not asking them for any ID, to walk in their door for a service? And that's what we represent, and you know it very well, so I'm not going to preach to the choir. But it's just amazing when you look at the diversity of the individuals that come into all of our respective libraries by age, by sexual orientation, by immigrant status, by the need. And that's what your investment has done to allow us 6 days a week to provide those services to individuals, and in a rare case, 7 days a week. And I say that because the investment of 7 days a week will allow us to even give more return on your investment as far as opening up the doors for those individuals to get quality services. The one thing I don't think you've ever heard in any of our testimony or for any feedback is someone saying, we've gotten poor service from a library. When they walk in our doors, thanks to those individuals, thanks to the hardworking staff who are here and those who are now staffing the libraries while we're here, they get a commitment from individuals who are there to serve their needs. And all we're saying to you is that we want to expand those services. It's not that difficult. We want to expand our services 7 days a week, and as Tony and Linda have indicated, at least one per councilmatic district. And it's not just expanding the services, because we can build programs. Look at the leadership that's here. Look at the folks who are here, and look at the people who are back at our respective libraries. We can build programs, but at the same time, we want to make sure we have facilities that represent New York City. I remember the days when the city council chamber did not look like this at all. And take a look at your council chamber right now. And you sit here with great pride on the way it looks as a result of an investment on the part of the administration and the city council to make sure we have a quality chamber here. All we're asking for is the same thing. A quality investment in our libraries from a capital point of view to allow us to use the money efficiently, not to benefit us as individuals, but to benefit those customers, those people who come in and our staff, so they have a facility that they're proud of. And the thing that we haven't really talked about, we want that type of investment, but we want that investment to turn around quickly. We don't want to string that investment out over a 10 to 12-year period of time. You invest in us, we want to make sure we turn that investment back to the community in a timely way so they reap the benefits of that investment. That's what this is about. So enough of us. Let's hear from the actual customers who matter, who have talked about their needs, who represent the people who come through our doors. Thank you for the opportunity.
Living in New York as an immigrant is hard. It's hard, especially because I was illegal and I wanted to go to college. I have to get an education. If I really want to be someone in this world, I have to get an education. Before becoming a mentor to kids, we were being mentored on how to work with the kids. And through that program at first, I learned so much. I've opened up myself to a whole new world that opened up a person that I never knew existed within myself.
I'm here thanks to my youngest. She brought me, She went on the internet. She said, Mommy, we are grown now, and what do you want to do? I said, you know what I want to do and I always want to do? I want to learn to read and write. I have this opportunity to come to this library to do what I wanted to do all my life.
Before, I couldn't read because there were some hard words I couldn't understand, but now I could read now because the library helped me. In my heart, it feels great to read now because I can understand better.
Here in the library, it is something official under the government. You are giving me correct data. You are teaching me my rights in a nice way. You understand my culture. You understand my pain and ignorance. Yes, I'm ignorant for a lot of things, and you respect my ignorance. So, and you put me in the correct track, so no, library is like you are protecting me.
I didn't really feel a vibe or a momentum to coming to school. After the library, it kind of gave me a push to strive for the best, or earn for the 90s, earn for the 100s, get the honor roll, something like that. So I think I'm going on the right direction.
I joined the business class for here. I make the business plan. Before, I have a dream about own coffee shop, but just a dream. But finish the Queen's Library, the business class, I have a plan, business plan.
I feel more comfortable when I speak because I learn a lot about my teachers from the library, and they prepared to me very, very well. I say thank you to my teacher, thank you to God, and thank you to this country because I feel so, so happy.
On June 6, 2014, I lost my home and I became homeless. And as I hadn't read in years, you know, and to do the reading again and get on the computers and get to meet the people, it's been very, you know, it helped me out a lot.
The library for me was really the place where I kind of found myself. I realized my love for learning while sitting on one of these tables. And then this is me coming back home. I finished med school in May, and now I'm working right here in the Bronx. So it's kind of coming back to the community that sort of helped raise me in a way.
I walked into the library 2 days after I landed here, and I got myself a library card. And I had something that said my name on it and the name of New York on it. I took my high school equivalency exam here, and I applied to colleges from here. And I got accepted in Queens College, and I also applied for my jobs from here. I made my resume here. So it was kind of home and library and home for me for a very long while.
The library helped us to be a U.S. citizen.
I can vote. I can participate.
This is my dream when I can speak English well. I'm not perfect, but I'm very happy.
When I was 15, my father got deported, and it shattered my world, then completely turned my life upside down. When I first started this program, you know, I was in a really bad place, and now here, I'm more than happy with who I work with, the kids that I work with. What life throws at us, I know that it gets hard, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
That concludes our testimony. Thank you.
That adjourns this hearing. Like, what do we gotta talk about here? Incredibly powerful. I would like to make sure that we get that over to the administration. So we should figure out a way we can get a copy so we can play it for Mr. Dean Foulahan. Again, this hearing is very different from our other hearings. This is usually when we question the administration and we push back and we say, you know, why haven't you applied this funding? Where is this funding? We need to prioritize this. Why this is different is because we have your allies and the advocates at the other table. We're going to ask things that are related to the budget, and the first round of questions after the chairs ask their questions will be 5 minutes, and if we need a second round, we'll come back for a 3rd-minute round. So I wanted to jump right in. In the current budget of $365.9 million, is it sufficient to meet all the needs for all the systems?
It is not sufficient to meet all the needs if you consider those needs being having libraries open on the days when working New Yorkers can get to them. Right now, we do not have enough libraries open on Sundays, in some cases also not on Saturdays. That's when folks can get to it. We have together invested so much more in educational programs, amazing staff, but if the doors are locked because we don't have sufficient days and hours, it doesn't work. So it's simply that we see increased demand, and we need additional capacity to meet that demand.
So at the request that you have, the council urged the administration to put in an additional $34 million for funding.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does the $34 million bring you to date, or does that allow you to plan for the future?
Well, the $34 million allows us to have at least one library open in each councilmanic district 7 days a week, and we'd love to plan for that.
Okay. Now I wanted to talk about capital because I think it's one of the parallel important questions that we have. The capital commitment rate is something that we've been asking every agency, everyone that has come before us, because as a council, we want to ensure that what we plan for is exactly what could be spent down. And I think there's an opportunity for the systems to express some of the challenges that you may be having with building, right? To actually, once you get this money in, what are the challenges? We are working with DDC, but we're also looking at opportunities within EDC, because EDC has had a commitment rate that's, they build at a rate that's much more expedient. We're currently putting together a task force looking at the procurement process across our city. And it's just an opportunity for us to better understand what can we do in the council or within this process that can be highlighted as a challenge that we might need to look into to help facilitate this process for you. So if you can just talk about, the libraries have expressed a strong need for increased capital funding. However, the system's commitment of $28.7 million or 7.1% of its annual capital plan of $407. What steps can we take together to improve that rate?
You want to take that? No follow-up. Yeah, go ahead, after you. No follow-up.
So there are two, it's a complex problem.
That's why I'm asking.
So the first issue is that because we're underfunded and so deeply underfunded, even the money that we were to get in fiscal 2018 wouldn't make up for the shortfalls that we are experiencing with projects that have been funded for a long time and are currently in progress. So we are right now in jeopardy of having to halt about 40 projects around the borough that need to be completed. And these are not extravagant projects. We are talking about HVAC systems and roofs and just very basic infrastructure, what we've been calling state of good repair projects around the borough. And so the funding stream itself contributes to the problem. And then there's the other problem that we're all sort of dancing around here, which is the length of time and the amount of money that some of these projects cost, and the problems that we have when we are using DDC as our construction company.
Right.
And that problem, the length of time that things take, sets into motion delays that create stories you could not even believe. Like when I sit there and hear from the various people who work in our capital planning and facilities management department why things have been halted and why we're talking 10 years down the road about a project that should have been completed in a year, it's mind-boggling. But there are some things that are out of our control, regulatory changes that change standards that we need to build to, and none of us have control over that. But the delay that occurs and the increase in costs that occur before projects even begin construction, just before we even get to final design.
Right.
And that is one of the reasons that we are trying to do some of these projects as pass-throughs, and using EDC is certainly one technique that we think would help us greatly.
So if I may add to that, I think it's not just about the money. It really is about money and efficiency and how we are allocated the dollars, and I think the barriers to use those dollars. And one of the things since I started last year is becoming more aware of the hurdles that we face as far as responding to the type of issues that Linda talked about, and I think the need from your leadership, your respective leadership, to try to convene the appropriate parties, which includes OMB as well, together to talk about ways to improve the both process as well as deliverables on the money itself. So while we can advocate for more money, which we definitely want, we're also advocating for regulatory change to allow us more efficiency in how we do it. And I think Linda is spot on as far as pass-throughs. And I won't identify the particular council member, even though he is sitting right there in the lead and he worked for the library, but I won't mention his name. But at one point, certain council members said, and don't come back to us and me for any more money. And he said that in jest, but also in seriousness, because by the time we talk about a project, the money is allocated by all of you, and you've done a masterful job in the borough of Queens, then that money is too little. And so we have to come back to you over and over and over again. And he said it in a correct way, because we should be getting the money, we should be able to plan it out and use the dollars as been allocated to us and not have to come back to you. That's a better use and efficiency of how we build or improve the infrastructure. And then, you know, it's just mind-boggling as far as getting an answer around a particular issue when we're dealing with our particular construction projects. And you know my stories, and I can go chapter and verse, and I'm not going to stretch it out any longer. But I mean, we have 2 projects in the borough of Queens that should be done or should be almost complete. And I can add 2 more to those. And the answer changes day after day after. It shouldn't be that way, because the people who suffer are not us. The people who suffer are our customers who are looking for Kew Gardens Hills to be open when they say they're going to open it, and then we can do what we have to do, or a Hunters Point or Corona or East Elmhurst and Borough Queens. We need regulatory change as well as obviously greater dollars to do the job.
One of the reasons that in my testimony I was specific about each library system needing $50 million this year is so that we can actually prevent a lot of these projects that are in jeopardy of coming to a grinding halt. And if we could start to catch up with an allocation like $50 million, not that it will take care of everything, but we could start to catch up and start to plan and address construction and renovation issues before they become emergencies, then we wouldn't be in this position year after year.
Madam Chair, you've hit a nerve. There are, I think, 3 ingredients here. One is critical maintenance, right? If we do not have the money to stop the leaks get worse. That's bad for everybody. Second is a steady stream of major investment so that we can do the full renovations rather than Band-Aids that don't do the job. And third is we need a process that takes the resources that you and the mayor provide, the city taxpayers provide, and makes the best use of them. At the New York Public Library, we have seen that when we are able to manage our own projects, and we are open to whatever arrangements make sense, if EDC makes sense, whatever it is, we can get them done in half the time for roughly half the money. I'm not an expert, but that sounds fairly dramatic to me. And as Dennis just said, it's not just that we're frustrated. It's not just that the elected officials are frustrated because you don't get to see the projects done in a timely way. It's the citizens of New York who deserve to get twice as much bang for their buck at twice the speed. And if they're not getting it because we haven't figured out a process that works, then that's on us to figure it out.
And that's exactly what we needed for the record and for the testimony, because as we talk about the capital commitments across our city, there's nothing more frustrating for elected officials. We have to advocate, prod, pull, push, negotiate every dollar that we're able to bring back to our districts. And there's nothing more frustrating than when you go to your district and present this wonderful plan and say, hey guys, we're finally going to fix the air conditioning, we're finally going to fix that roof, except when it doesn't happen. And it happens 6 or 7 years later. And in many cases, especially now, I think with term limits, which is a reality, right? You're doing it for the person that's going to come in right after you. And that's not how this is supposed to be. This is not, how it's intended to be. And I have to bring up East Elmhurst. And I know that we worked really hard and we finally broke ground. But the reality is that that's a project that started at $3 million and it ended up being $13 million. And it wasn't like I'm building a new library. It's the same exact room, the same exact project, with nothing different and nothing new. And I'm not saying this kind of to you, I'm saying it with you. It can't continue at this rate. Why I need to hear this from you is because we also need to understand that while we're going to advocate for this capital money, that we're not going to be putting money within the same system. Because, okay, we fight and we get $150 million, but the system hasn't changed. So how can we ensure that now we have this new capital funding, we haven't given you the tools necessary for you to be able to expedite that? So that is what, we need to also figure out, that in tandem with the money is the improvements of, the critical maintenance, but also the improvements of the structure, or giving you an opportunity to expedite these build-outs.
Can I just say, Madam Chairman, I think that's absolutely right. And it's my impression that everybody agrees, right? We agree,
Right.
You agree, the mayor's side agrees, everyone agrees. So that sounds like a moment of opportunity to me.
It boggles my mind that we're having this conversation between the folks who are up here, our council people, our chair people, the people who are on our respective staffs. You got the best brains here to solve this problem. And again, as you've laid out, and we've talked to others as well, it's not just about the money. And I think we have talked about it among ourselves as far as you look in the room here and you have brilliant minds to solve this issue and to change the regulatory requirements and restrictions that go on. And it shouldn't be the case, as you identified, with the $3 million that balloons into $13 million. And by the time the industry is hot, then we have to come back for more money. It shouldn't be that way. And we're pledging our support, our collective support, to work with you and our teams to find a way to solve this.
Okay, great. So can all of you work efficiently if we're able to identify pass-throughs that can be done? Can we get a commitment on the record from all of you? Can you do that?
Yes.
Yes.
By all means.
Yes, we do more pass-throughs, I think, than any of the systems. I will say, at some point, we need partnership
Of course.
with administration. We have it. We need it to work even better to be able to do this in an affordable and efficient way.
Have you worked with any other agency other than DDC to build any parts of the library system?
EDC.
Okay. And in your experience with using EDC, has it been more efficient or the same?
It has been, Madam Chair.
Great. I'm getting all this for the record. I already know these answers, but
And SCA also
SCA.
is a potential. I mean, we've talked to SCA, and SCA may have some interest in working with us as well. So SCA can.
So would it be for library systems close to a school, or just any system?
To be explored, but I mean,
Okay.
I've talked about this before. I mean, we're also talking about we don't have to be relegated to an EDC. We can form our own library construction authority, and it could be modeled after an SCA as well, and that gives us the ability to be more efficient in the way we do things. I think there are various options available to us.
Tony Marks is dying over there.
Why, Tony's always dying. That's why I don't look in his direction.
I like the idea. I know the School Construction Authority is something we've used often to compare a system that actually builds expediently and does it well. I'm going to have my co-chairs ask their questions, and I'll come back for my final questions in a second round. Chair Van Bramer, followed by Chair King.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And this is a difficult hearing in many ways because we agree. I agree wholeheartedly with the asks, and so it's more like a rally in some ways, an informative rally. But I want to ask you a couple of things. First, I want to say thank you for the video because it is a very touching reminder of what this is all about, and I think government, politics, even the day-to-day of the work that you all do, sometimes we don't see that enough. We're not reminded frequently enough about the work that's done. And I remember when I worked for the library, I thought it was one of the greatest jobs in the world because every single day you went to work you saw the people that you were helping, right? You actually knew that every day you went to work, whether it's the Queens, Brooklyn, or New York Public Libraries, that your job was to actually bring a little bit of goodness to the world every single day. And not everyone has a job like that, where you can feel that sense of satisfaction, right? You can feel that sense of decency, right, and humanity moving in the right direction. And all of you do that. So I just hope that every single person here who has the privilege of working for a public library feels that every single day, right? I hope you feel that and know that you make such an incredible difference in the lives of all those folks. And speaking of which, you know, we talk a lot about this moment with the federal government and with seeming an administration that's in chaos, and that chaos that we can talk about from in a political way has deep meaning with respect to crisis for many of the people who we see at our public libraries. And so I wanted to ask all of you about what you're seeing in the systems in terms of people who are needing you more. Maybe it's immigration questions, maybe it's a safe space to go, maybe it's just wanting to talk to that friendly library worker about the fact that they're afraid, or their children are afraid of what is happening, seeming events that are so big. And also maybe speak to this within the context of a 7-day request, because if a family is afraid and the library is not open, they can't go. And so the crisis that's happening in people's lives every day doesn't take a break on Sundays. It is still with them every single day. So needless to say, I support the 7-day request, but maybe you can speak a little to its urgency and why it's so important.
So we at Queens started our Queens is for Everyone campaign, which basically is to respond to that, because we've heard, we see, we feel the fear that people have around what's taking place in the news and raising questions on status or just trying to find basic information on what's going on. And our folks have been wearing both T-shirts, but also going out and finding different ways of going beyond our walls to spread our library services to people to address those questions. We plan to have a 31-hour marathon at one of our libraries. We'll be open all night and all morning and providing services to respond to those particular needs as well. And it's as a result of what our customers are saying to us and the type of response that they need to have in addressing the questions. And they look to the library for quality information, reliable information, and accessible information. And by tying that into 7 days a week, that builds in a greater accountability and accessibility to the public at large as far as being able to get that information. Because people work, people do different things, and Sunday should not be a day where they can't get that information from these hardworking individuals who provide the quality services. Because the one thing when you think about it, and you really do think about it and say, I can go into a library and be confident of the information I'm going to get. That librarian is the person who is grounded in research, grounded in knowledge, and being able to provide me the information. And our citizens need that on a 7-day-week basis. So while we can't open up all of our libraries, we would love to 7 days a week, we definitely can open up one per councilmatic district. It's not that much to ask for. And having, again, the quality buildings, and it ties in, Councilman, to the point that people just don't know. I mean, when you look at the newspapers, the story changes every hour. It's not like an everyday story, something new happens. I mean, you go online and you see breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, and imagine how you feel. Then imagine how people who are not connected to the system feel, who don't know, who are being attacked one way or the other, either directly or through inference, and then people have to respond to that. And where do they go? Where do they come to for that free service to know that door will be open at some hour of the day? Our libraries. and we need to open it up more to make sure they're able to get those services.
Mr. Chairman, I think we've been moving towards meeting these needs sort of in anticipation. So at the New York Public Library, a 500% increase in English language instruction over the last 4 years, and adding citizenship classes as well as other resources and expertise, as Dennis described. We do hear about families, even caregivers, who are now fearful about coming into the library, whether it's for story time or English language classes. We hear about people coming into our branches to get information about what are described as predators in terms of visa advice that is fraudulent, and they rely on us for that. I think we've reached out to the legal services community during these last months, and we've said, what do you need? And the answer has been, well, actually, we need places where our experts can meet with the people who need our advice in the neighborhoods, open on Saturdays and Sundays when people can come to them. That sounds like a library. And one of the powers of the library is because everyone comes, there's a protection in that, right? The fact that libraries welcome all with no necessary credentials, proof, identity papers, anything, says all New Yorkers come. Therefore, we can meet the needs of those New Yorkers who are living in increased fear without saying you should not be fearful to come to the library because everyone is coming. It's not an accident that this year's logo is invest in all New Yorkers.
So my colleagues have spoken eloquently on this subject. I would add really only one thing, and that is that libraries have always been a trusted environment, a place where our doors have been open for everyone and where we have tried to provide services that reflect the needs of our communities. And of course, that's what we're all doing right now, is trying to provide that safety and that environment for people who are expressing to us a new set of needs, or at least feeling, or at least have become more vocal about expressing those needs to us at this particular time. So I think that the more we can do for our communities, regardless of the political environment, the better, and that this is a moment where we should be stepping up.
So I just think, the work that libraries do and that library workers do, it's really hard for people, I think, to understand the full breadth of what that represents, right? And I'll ask even some of the folks that you can raise your hands if you believe this is true, but I know that there are occasions when people receive potentially devastating medical diagnoses, for example. And has anyone ever had someone come to their library or know a library worker who's been approached by someone who's just had a diagnosis, and they come to the library to try and read up about that and look at their treatment options and what they could be and how to survive, right? People don't understand, right, the power of that moment when that person comes into the library and says to the librarian, right, I've just been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. I need some books on ovarian cancer, right? I need some books on how to survive this, right? Or a child whose parents are fighting, or maybe getting a divorce, or maybe there's insecurity in the home, right? How many folks have either witnessed or know of a staff member who's had to reassure a child, right, that it's going to be okay, right, that they're going to be safe? You all represent that front line, right? That's why we need libraries open 7 days a week, right? That's why we need these safe havens. So it's just incredibly important, and we say it all the time, but you really make a difference in people's lives in terms of, in some cases, life or death. It's not an exaggeration. So thank you again. I've seen it myself, and I know there's so many other examples of folks who are coming and seeing the frontline library workers, and that interaction, right, is about life and death. Right, that interaction is about how they overcome, how they succeed, how they make it to a better place. So that's my 7-day piece. And in terms of the Capitol, you know, we have to get this right, because I think, you know, Chair Ferris Copeland and I certainly believe in the investment and continue to invest. But we don't want other, you know, folks in government to see the delays as a reason to disinvest, right? We can't allow the problems with East Elmhurst or Hunters Point to be a disincentive to anyone to say, why should we give them more capital because there are these problems. No one is more livid about Hunters Point than I am. No one has learned more about Windows than me. But I would still, even given all the problems, invest another $40 million into a brand new library, because I know what that will do the day we open it for the people of Long Island City. But that's why we have to get this right. We have to invest this funding. We have to make sure these libraries have what they need. And then at the same time, and I love the Library Construction Authority, by the way. I think we should make that happen tomorrow. It's just too important. It's just too important. So, you know, I don't, I have fewer questions and more statements, but in the interest of time, I'll just say, you know, we'll fight as we always have. I'm proud of the work that we've done, adding libraries to the 10-year capital plan, increasing by $300 million the capital, and now we need another 150, and we need to continue the progress. Baselining 6-day service was a huge victory, and as some folks know, this is the 19th budget season in a row where I have sat in this chamber for this hearing. The first 11 as a member of the staff of the Queens Library, and as the last 8 as the chair of the Cultural Affairs and Libraries Committee. So this is a 20-year piece, and I'm not yet 50, so this is a big part of my life, really, that I've been doing this work. So I know how important it is. It is really essential that we get there. So I want to thank all of you, but more to the point, I want to thank all of you for your fight and being part of this fight. So let's go and do it.
Thank you, Chair. We'll hear from Chair King. I just wanted to, for the record, actually acknowledge that this committee actually created DDC. And the reason why it created DDC was to do exactly not what they're doing now. It was to make the process of capital commitments more efficient, to move processes along, and I think that in many ways, and you know, I know Peña Mora or someone's watching right now, I think there are things that are done efficiently through the agency. There is something to be said about prioritizing. And that is our biggest engagement and conversation with the administration, is making sure that your projects are prioritized. And in many ways, while the number seems very large when you compare it to paving roads and doing other big things, those are huge. Those are a huge undertaking. And I think that is probably one of the challenges that DDC faces. So in no ways are we trying to you know, badmouth an agency or in that way. It just really is about finding a more efficient way. So when you talk about a library construction authority or, you know, or an entity like that, you know, it's not like we haven't done it here in the council before. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Chair King.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chair, as well. Thank you for today's conversation. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for having the privilege to stand with 3 of you and all of you to help have a right conversation to improve our library system. I have a couple of questions I want to ask you. At the risk of advocating against myself, I'm still going to ask some of these questions. So I'm just going to jump right in. So I'd just like to know, since fiscal year, say 2015 to today, what would you say has been the increase of usership in or visits to the library total from 2 years ago to today? What would you say that total number looks like?
Go ahead. I would say the most notable change that we have seen, again, I think in partnership with the City Council and with the Mayor, is a significant increase in programming attendance in the libraries, right? So in the old days, right, you came, you grabbed a book, you went, or you came, you grabbed a book, you sat, and then you went. And now an increasing number of people who are coming for pre-K literacy work, after school or homework help. They're coming for English language classes, citizenship classes. They're coming at the New York Public Library, 100,000 people in a year for basic computer skills training all the way up to coding. And what that also means, Mr. Chairman, is the length of stay in the library has increased. So it's moving from purely or more transactional, book in, book out, to, no, I'm here to not just grab my books, but also to learn. And we think that's just a very exciting additional part of our part of the fabric of New York.
Okay, so I'm going somewhere with this question.
Yes,
so
sir.
I just want to try to get an understanding. Would you say in the last 2 years, just picking a number, that participation in libraries have risen, say, by maybe 10,000 more people coming through this whole 3 systems, or 50,000 you might think that visit the system or have increased? What would you say that number might look like?
I can tell you in Queens, I'm not sure about the last 2 years, I can tell you from year to year, we've had, as Tony indicated, we see the biggest growth in program services, a 25.5% increase in number of people coming to Queens Library to receive program services. And as Tony indicated also, a lot of that is directly correlated to having the 6-day-a-week service. So we can show that we've been able to improve both the quality but also the number of program offerings as a result of that.
Okay.
And in Brooklyn as well, program attendance is the largest area of growth. Nearly 65,000 program sessions with nearly 1 million attendees in 2016. And in addition to that, Wi-Fi sessions continue to increase, which is an interesting fact, because it means people are bringing their own devices into the library but still needing the service itself in order to be connected. So this work that we do to connect the people who are on the wrong side of the digital divide continues to be critical.
And if I can add to it, and going back to the prior conversation, that increase is as a result of also not having all of our libraries up and running when they should be either. So as a result of delays, we lose hours or days, weeks, and months of having libraries offline because of those delays. And so imagine how much higher the numbers would be.
I have a heartbreaking statistic, which is that in 2016, we lost over 550 hours of library service due to unscheduled closings.
Interesting.
Okay.
We've seen at the New York Public Library, we're now at about 93,000 system-wide programs. We're projecting that this year, just in the early literacy programs, we'll be at 700,000 attendees. We were at somewhere in the 250,000 2 years ago, as I recall, thereabouts. We've seen, with your investment and the mayor's investment, in moving towards increased 7-day service, which is part of what we're asking for to continue with here. We've seen 60,000 more visits, and that's just with having added 4 or 5 new locations. If we project, this is a projection, that if every City Council member's district, every neighborhood in New York had at least 1 library open on Sundays, just in the New York Public Library system, we think that would be a roughly 300,000 increase of visits. But what's more important, it isn't just the numbers, it's what happens when you come, right? Whether it's you're an immigrant in fear and eager to learn English or citizenship advice, or we hope legal services as well, which we've begun to provide in the libraries, whether it's needing help with your homework so you can do better at school, or learning computers, or getting access to computers so you can apply to jobs. Okay. If the doors are closed, we cannot do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so Tony makes a great point, because In our request, if you take the $34 million that we're asking for 7-day service and break it down by system, Brooklyn's share of that is $9.75 million. Of that, there's a lot of that is allocated to hiring the staff that we would need in order to keep the libraries open those hours, but there's a significant portion that is also dedicated to the acquisition of additional materials and additional programming. And it's not just keeping the doors open. That is not enough. It's truly, as Tony expressed, what happens while the library is open.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you not for an answer right now, but maybe later you can calculate. I'd like to get a number of how many people actually come through the doors. You mentioned you're somewhere about 90,000, you're going up to 110,000 maybe. Just get the actual number, because I would like to get a breakdown somewhere in the near future of, in each borough, how many people are going to the libraries, in your system, how many people are going to the libraries, so the administration can actually get an understanding of the numbers, because we know we're number-driven in society, right. And they really need to know how many people are attending our public library system, so they can't say it's not a need for a 7-day service.
Right. Mr. Chairman, the one thing we absolutely know is across the 3 systems, we get about 38 million physical visits a year. Mm-hmm. That is more, with all due respect to my friends and colleagues, than all the other cultural institutions and professional sporting teams combined.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I have a couple of more questions. Thank you for that answer. The $34 million that you're asking for to open up a library in each of the 51 districts, saying that we're able to accomplish this and you're able to do that, how would you determine which libraries would be open in any district? Do you have a process in place to say who would be open?
So we're not talking at this moment about which libraries. We're making the representation that there would be one in each councilmanic district.
Okay. Okay. I got it. Thank you.
And we have an internal process of analysis that we would go through if we reach that particular point as far as making that determination.
Again, we would be using data as to usage, space, demand, public transport to make sure that wherever we did this, we had the maximum impact. And of course, we'd be in discussions with you on our
elected officials. Right.
So another question. Knowing that our library system is the largest in the country, how would you say that funding is used to promote to people out who are non-city residents? Because if we have the largest kind of system, are we using programs to encourage other New Yorkers to use our system? Are people coming outside of New York because of our system to use our library systems?
I think as a matter of law, if you are a New York State resident, because the state does, at least in the New York Public Library, I think we get about $20 million a year from the state, you can use the New York Public Library. I think in the circulating branches, that's a very small number. Okay. In our case, the big use of non-New York City residents is in the research library, which is the vast majority of which we privately fund.
So speaking of research libraries...
Oh, I apologize. The other exception is the Andrew High School Library for the Blind is the federally funded tri-state basis for all library services for the blind.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And you mentioned research libraries. So there's $37.7 million, including city and non-city funds, for fiscal year 2017 in the executive capital plan for research libraries. So I know there's been work done, about $13.5 million for the Schomburg, the process and the project's working. Do you have an idea when that's going to be completed? I know we've been there and there's been work being done.
The total $20 million investment in the second round of renovation of the incredible Schomburg Center in Harlem will be completed by the end of June. We have an amazing new director there. We just announced the acquisition of the James Baldwin Archive, amongst other things that we've been working on for 5 years. Just checking. But we're really excited about having that renovation. I was just there a couple days ago, and it's almost done.
Almost done. You're looking at
June, July.
June. Oh, okay. All right. Beautiful, beautiful. And I'm going to kind of wrap up with this. I understand the funding that we've been asking for is kind of to offset the crooked system that we have right now that just isn't working properly. Madam Chair, Jalissa Ferez just mentioned that that the City Council kind of put together the agency that's handling your capital. So I want her to hear this, Madam Chair. You just mentioned that the City Council kind of put together the system that allows or doesn't allow for you to get capital projects done correctly or in a timely manner. I would subscribe that we got to figure out what I call the FF program, which is that if they can't, I'm gonna drop it right now, that we need to either fix this system that you can get capital funding and get it done and get things built, or we fire something so we can get it done the correct way. Because we're coming and having these conversations regularly. We're all on the same page, and we know where the problem lies. So if they can't fix it, then you got to fire it and start doing something different so we can get different results. So we're going to continue to work to help you. You have all our support, and I'm looking forward to us improving our library systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was a little worried with your FF system there. We've been joined by Councilmember Crowley, Rodriguez, Constantinidis. We will now hear from Councilmember Constantinidis, followed by Councilmember Koo.
It's good to see you all again. I know as a father, my son's going to turn 8 next week, and the families in my district, thousands and thousands of families, they're not expecting us to fix the libraries tomorrow, but they want to see their children's rooms get renovated while their kids are still of the age to sit on their lap and read with one another, right? I mean, I think that looking at that sort of end of childhood, people expect that they're going to be able to read in those libraries with their children while they're still children and continue that love of reading all the way through their lives. So I appreciate the great capital conundrum we're under here as trying to see things move as quickly as possible, because I think we all have our own stories. I'm going to ask about my district in particular, just because I'm sorry, Dennis, always put you on the spot. But how is any new news about Steinway Library at all? And are we still on track to maybe break ground this year?
It is my hope to do that, but I mean, one of the things I've learned in this job is not to give a definitive answer. And I say that not being funny, but the reality is sometimes the roadmap changes. But it is our goal, and as you know, we definitely collaborate with our elected officials in the borough of Queens as far as the status of the project. And I'm looking around at Jonathan or our capital people to give me an accurate answer. And where Jonathan, show me where I'm at. Steinway, Phase 2 renovation. In design right now with a completion date of autumn of 2019. And so we're in design phase right now.
We don't have a contractor yet.
No.
So we're not in procurement. So it means we're still in design.
Same thing than when we met.
Which means we're probably not going to be breaking ground.
Yeah, that's the reality. Unfortunately.
I stand with you. I'm asking these questions to sort of highlight the own challenges that we're each having in every of our districts. And I stand with both of our chairs in expressing, and with you and all of the workers here who do the work every single day and in conditions that are not ideal. And in saying that we have to do better. So figured I'd want to put that on the record and ask about the library. I always ask at every hearing, so thank you. And I will turn it back over to our chairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. We will hear from Council Member Koo, followed by Council Member Levin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Tony, Dennis, and Linda for coming to testify. And I want to appreciate your leadership and all the staff and all the people here showing up in this public hearing means very important. Library service is very critical in New York City. I especially like your slogan today, invest in libraries, invest in all New Yorkers. No, it's true. I mean, so we have to ask the mayor and make sure City Council support all your financial needs, because it takes money to make money and to make our citizens more productive. So I have a question for Dennis, because you are the Queen's chief. The Flushing Library, the Main Street Library, is always very crowded. And so I wonder what is the census for the library? Like, how many people use the library daily?
I have that information, sir. Give me a second. With Flushing, we have, as of this date, April 30th, if I'm reading it correctly, 981,000 people have taken advantage of Flushing as of April 30th.
980?
Say again? 5,000 a day? So 5,000 a day.
So 5,000 people a day.
Right.
So, and this is one of the most busy libraries.
It is not in competition with my colleagues here, but Flushing is
Yeah, 5,000.
busiest. Yeah,
So is still on the top or all the libraries?
still on top.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be on good behavior right now. I got my two colleagues, but we know Flushing is the high demand area, and especially we're pleased to say with all this doom and gloom that we just completed, as you know, because you were there, the opening of our children's room.
That's why every day I go to every day I live by the library, not too far, and I go to the library very often. And every time I go, the library is really too crowded, And I see people sitting on the floors, reading the books, almost on every floor. So that means we need more libraries.
I like crowded. Because crowded means people are coming to the libraries. But as you also know, we're about to do some more work in Flushing as well. And I think with the redesign of the lobby area that we just put in place, which also is adjacent to the opening and the expansion of the children's room, that will even create more demand for people because they see a library that's even more useful to them. So we will be putting new elevators in place, as we've talked about. So we have a lot of plans for Flushing and Queens as well.
What about the branch at Queensboro Hill? It has been closed for a long, long time, yeah. Under construction, I know, but...
Yeah, so that goes to my earlier...
How soon can we expect it to be open?
We talked about that a couple of days ago internally, and Queensboro Hill, I think, is being pushed out to June. Yeah, to June. So Queensboro Hill, we're looking at June. We were hoping to have it open sooner, but it is not the case. And so we're looking at a push out to June for the opening of Queensboro Hill.
So thank you, yeah, and I urge my chair, Chair Jimmy and Chair Julissa to support the library as much as we can, because it's fun. It's a shame that in this New York City, we are one of the biggest cities in the world, and we have leaking roofs in the libraries, And so those are the basic infrastructures, It shouldn't happen in here. So we should give them ample funding to do all the things they need to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Councilmember Levin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Chair, I'll keep my question very brief. Hi, everybody. I just had a quick question following up on the Brooklyn Heights sale from last year. Just what's the status there, Ms. Johnson? Can you fill us in on when, how much in terms of, since this is a budget hearing, what type of funds are expected to be as a result of the proceeds of that sale?
So first of all, thank you for all your help in this transaction. The closing is scheduled, and I believe it's actually a good date at this point, for next week. Okay. So that's a big step forward. In the meantime, if you've been by the branch at all, you'll see that the demolition work is already underway, at least the interior. And we are hoping to be able to, after we spend money fitting out the new library in Brooklyn Heights, to take $40 million out of that project, out of the proceeds of the sale of that property, and spend it around the borough and other libraries. And we've identified several projects that we will be targeting. The Sunset Park Library will be the beneficiary of money from that transaction. Washington Irving, Pacific, Walt Whitman, Ulmer Park, Leonard, and then, as you know, part of the negotiation over the Brooklyn Heights project was to open a new branch for the first time, serving the communities of Dumbo, Vinegar Hill. And so we're excited that we'll be opening a branch there probably in 2020.
Okay. And then when you say closing next week, that means that the transaction will happen next week as well?
Exactly.
Upon closing?
Right. In other words, the funds will transfer from the developer who's purchasing the property to the city through EDC as our agent.
Can you let us know when that is completed?
Definitely.
Great.
We will be celebrating.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. and Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council Member. Chair Van Bramer.
Thank you very much. I think we've had an important discussion here, a continuation of the advocacy. Again, we have made great strides for our libraries over the last few years in particular, but more needs to be done, and I know that the chair and I feel very strongly about libraries. We've always loved libraries. Libraries are an important part of our lives, and we're going to keep fighting for all of you. So is everyone ready to keep fighting for libraries? Right? 7-day service, 150 million in capital. So let's get it done. We want to thank all of you for being here, and again, thank you to all the library workers who day in and day out make our city a better place. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge that the DC, our Culturals Commissioner clapped to that too. Just duly noted. Commissioner Finkel-Pearl.
So just in fairness, do all of you love culture and the arts as well? Wait, guys. That's
Great. I don't know if you have this number. If you don't, we can follow up. As was mentioned, we've all kind of had our different experiences with the library. My first job was at the libraries where I learned the Dewey Decimal System. And yes. How many summer youth employment young people do you bring on or have? Or, it's okay if you don't have the number, but we've been asking every agency before, so if you can get that number back to us, it would be incredibly helpful. We're looking to expand that program and want to know not only how many you have, but do you have capacity to take more?
Okay.
Okay? Well, with that, we'd like to also thank everyone who's come out today. This has been the most well-attended hearing of this fiscal year, and I think it's because it's important, right? Excellent. I also urge you to come back and give your own public testimony on May 25th, right here in this room. At 1 p.m. is when the public gets to come and testify and express your concerns, so please be sure to come back. That concludes the first part of today's budget hearings. I want to thank President Marks, Walcott, and Johnson for testifying. As a reminder, as I said, the public will be invited to testify on May 25th at 1 p.m. If you'd like to submit written testimony, if you can't make it, please do so at council.nyc.gov/budget/testimony. I don't know, that's a good idea. That's a good suggestion. Public testimony if they can't make it. And the staff will make it a part of the official record. We will now take a 5-minute break before we conclude today's hearing with the Department of Cultural Affairs.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the speaker as well.
Yes. Oh, I forgot. You wanted to make a statement.
Isn't that? I think we'll wrap up. Our member briefing starts at 2. Oh my God. You may or may not. Well, you have to leave it. No, because Culturals is presenting, but they'll put it up.
Yeah. Well, I guess you should too, right? Because you have to sit here as long as
I had relatively large
I'm
breakfast.
I'm starving.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I might just run to the
I'm
restroom.
hoping 5 minutes.
Yeah, I remember. We said next week. That's good. Ready to wrap up this one. We have a member briefing right after this. That's like, it's good. It's not that bad. Like, I mean, this is shorter because there's no public testimony. But in preliminary budget, we have public testimony, so it goes on for like 8, 9 hours. So, because everyone testifies, so like, it's not a short. It's just is this the first time you have been the first time in the budget room?
Good afternoon. My name is Julissa Ferreras Copeland. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee. I will now conclude the 11th day of budget hearings with testimony from Commissioner Tom Finkelpearl of the Department of Cultural Affairs. The Finance Committee is again joined by Chair Van Bramer and his committee. In the interest of time, I will forego an opening statement and turn it over to my co-chair, Majority Leader Van Bramer.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yes, and thank you again for these 11 days and your amazing stamina and dedication. I want to thank all of you from the cultural community, including, I believe, a place called BAM. Is that yes? Lots of folks from BAM and those great T-shirts for being here and being a part of this important day and process, and those who were here earlier for our press conference and rally for the arts and culture, including our science-based cultural institutions, of course. This is an incredibly important time for all of us. I said before, and I'll say it again, where the very belief in the value of culture and the arts is under assault in so many places. We are seeing unprecedented attacks on federal agencies that obviously have an impact on so many of us. And really New York City is, and always has been and should be, where that stops, right? That belief that this doesn't matter, isn't important, isn't worthy of funding, that ends here, right? In the city of New York, we understand the value of the arts. We understand the incredible contributions that culture and the arts makes. Yes, you can do this if you would like. I see some people sort of like, one went way up in the air, and then there was like a half a hand, and you're like, no, go all in. So it's more important than ever that the city of New York, which I'm really proud of the way we support the arts and the increases that we have had, but in order to really secure stability and a future that the cultural organizations can rely on, the city can and should step up and do even more for culture and the arts. And I'm very proud the City Council, under the last 3 years, with this speaker, finance chair, and myself, we've doubled City Council cultural initiatives. We alone in the City Council now are looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million a year in cultural initiatives alone, right? That's a significant increase and investment by this City Council. And last year we were thrilled to push for, and obviously Commissioner Finkelpearl deserves a lot of credit for this, the mayor included $10 million in the final budget for culture and the arts. However, that was not baselined, yes, and it was not included in this budget. So that funding not only should be restored, but it should be increased and it should be baselined. And so we are very much at this very, very precarious time for culture and the arts in the city of New York and in the country, because if the president has his way and devastates the NEA, the NEH, the NSF, the IMLS, all of these agencies where so many of our folks derive important funding, and this is for some of the largest of cultural institutions, but also some of the smallest of our cultural institutions, we're not going to let that happen in the city of New York. We're not going to let them suffer. And so how we make sure of that, I believe, is through this budget process, making sure that culture and the arts are funded and valued, right? This is about values. If budgets are about values, this is about recognizing your value and what you mean to the city of New York. So I'm anxious to hear the commissioner and what he has to say, and I just want to thank all of you for continuing to be a part of this. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, after you're sworn in by my counsel, you may begin your testimony.
Thank you. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the committee today, and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read my testimony. Good afternoon, Chair Van Bramer, Chair Ferreras Copeland, and committee members. I'm here today to present the testimony regarding the Mayor's Executive Fiscal Year 2018 budget for the Department of Cultural Affairs. I'm joined by a number of my DCLA staff over here. I will start with a brief look at DCLA's FY18 executive budget. A total expense allocation of $143 million includes $106 million for the Cultural Institution Group, $28.56 million for the Cultural Development Fund, $6.3 million for agency operations. These figures do not include the council initiatives and other one-time items that are typically added at adoption. Altogether, this funding flows to nearly 1,000 nonprofit cultural organizations every year. These groups in turn support a vast range of programming that reaches communities in every part of every borough. With just around 4% of our executive budget allocated to agency overhead, we're also a very lean operation. The vast majority of DCLA funding goes straight to the organizations doing the work in our communities. I'm pleased to announce that this funding includes $1 million in new funding to provide energy support for organizations that operate city-owned facilities under my agency's jurisdiction, but not members of the Cultural Institution Group. This is the second year that we have been able to provide this funding. This is a diverse group of organizations that have deep roots in their communities, such as Weeksville and Brick in Brooklyn, to Harlem Stage and Clemente Sotovelas in Manhattan. We're proud to provide this increased investment in these groups. The budget also includes $420,000 of baseline support to continue our Building Community Capacity program. Since expanding BCC last year, the program has increased its support for 4 underserved neighborhoods across the city: East New York, Brownsville, and Cypress Hills in Brooklyn, Inwood in Upper Manhattan, Jamaica, Queens, and the South Bronx. BCC works with local cultural groups in these neighborhoods to organize, cultivate resources, and develop programming that addresses local needs. For instance, the coalition of BCC groups in Jamaica, called Jamaica Is, hosted a community visioning event in March, bringing together stakeholders from across sectors. The goal was to build a community that highlights arts and culture and that encourages and strengthens broad participation and collaboration through engaging residents, artists, students, and cultural institutions of all kinds. And tomorrow, as part of the NYC by Design Festival, the Bronx Cultural Collective is hosting a South Bronx Baton, Reflections on Change. This walking tour and panel discussion will highlight the work of 4 community development corporations that have helped to transform the neighborhoods of the South Bronx over the last several decades. This programming, and more like it in other BCC communities, fosters local collaboration and, as the Bronx Cultural Collective puts it, preserve and amplify our regional culture for generations to follow. Turning to our capital budget, we currently have $826.6 million allocated for nearly 400 active projects at more than 200 organizations over the next 4 years. This includes $152 million that was added at adoption of FY 2017. For 2018, we have received requests for funding from 132 organizations, encompassing 177 projects. This is on par with prior years. We look forward to working with City Council and Borough Presidents to allocate funding for important cultural infrastructure projects across the city. Some highlights of our capital portfolio include Nuyorican Poets Cafe, which is the complete exterior rehabilitation and interior renovation of the existing cafe facility on East 3rd Street. This DDC-managed project is currently in design. Brooklyn Historical Society in Dumbo. Just yesterday, I helped cut the ribbon for Brooklyn Historical Society's second location at the Empire Stores complex. It's located in a renovated 19th century warehouse in the Brooklyn waterfront that has been vacant since the end of World War II. In fact, today is the first day of its open public hours. I encourage everyone to visit as soon as this hearing is over. Admission will be free of charge for the full weekend. The New York Botanical Garden, Edible Academy, and Family Garden enhancements, which will improve the existing Ruth Ray Howell Family Garden and allow more families to experience and engage with NYBG's living collections and programming. Queens Botanical Garden, Education Building, construction of a new educational building and surrounding landscape that will include a teaching greenhouse, teaching kitchen, space for adult education programs, and family programming to better serve the community. Funds are still being put together for this project. Snug Harbor Music Hall. The fiscal 2018 executive capital plan includes $13 million in city funding for fiscal 2017 through 21. This 120-year-old historically significant structure provides a professional 686-seat venue for concerts, performances, lectures, films, public ceremonies and symposia. No other city in America provides capital funding for cultural infrastructure at this scale. Our projects, collaborations with cultural organizations and city agencies, have recently received awards. Mary Temple received, for her Percent for Art Commission at McCarran Park, received a Design Excellence Award from the Design Commission. If zipping across Bronx River wasn't exciting enough on its own, New Yorkers will be able to do so on an award-winning zip line. The Treetop Adventure Zip Line and Nature Trek at the Bronx Zoo also won an Excellence in Design Award this year. And just last week, the first ship that my agency has ever restored, the Waver Tree, received a Lucy G. Moses Preservation Award from the New York Landmarks Conservancy. This 132-year-old wrought iron sailing ship was restored right here in New York City at Cadell Dry Dock in Staten Island. We thank our colleagues at the Department of Design and Construction for the excellent management of this unique project. You can visit her, the Waver Tree, at the South Street Seaport Museum. Our program unit is hard at work facilitating panels to review nearly 800 applications for FY 2018 Cultural Development Fund support. In fact, a big chunk of my agency is currently back in the office right now facilitating the 16th of this year's 22 panels. We thank the Council for their participation in this important process. It is worth mentioning here that our commitment to providing robust support for culture, as the majority speaker, leader just said, robust support for culture is as strong as ever as we face uncertain future with regard to federal funding. We will work tirelessly to make the argument that support for culture means supporting individuals, communities, and regions as the federal government budget is determined. I was proud to join you on the steps of City Hall last month to rally against these cuts. Let's keep up the fight in months to come. In other news, my agency recently concluded a one-year-long public artisan residency, PAIR, P-A-I-R, partnership with the Administration for Children's Services. The Lost Collective, a group of 4 theater artists and activists, spent 1 year in residence at 5 LGBTQ+ youth foster homes in Brooklyn and Queens, where they brought theater and interdisciplinary art practices to 30 youth. The residency ended with a reception and exhibition at the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, where the youth showed their self-portraits, photographs, poetry, original music composition, and experimental autobiographical films. The night and the residency were transformative for the youth and all involved. At the end of the residency, Jennifer Gunnell, director of SCO, the organization that facilitates the youth homes, reflected that after this year, she wonders if art is a right for these youth, in addition to clinical services. She said that this residency offered an element of antidote to the very heavy trauma that is so much part of the system from which the youth and even the staff suffer. We're always looking for ways to mitigate this heaviness, to open doors. Art immediately brought lightness, making me ask if this human necessity is a human necessity the same way other healthcare processes are. Is art a way to decrease everyone's sense of trauma? This public artisan residence is an example of the potential for change, personal, systematic, social, and political, that artists can bring when embedded in city agencies. For the last part of my testimony, I'm going to turn to the Create NYC Cultural Plan. The Council and the Chair and members of the committee in particular has been an incredible partner on this project. I believe all of you have been to events. As I testified back in February, your partnership in so many ways, in so many of our workshops and other events, sent a powerful message to New Yorkers that their representatives in government are really, truly listening to their ideas and concerns. This past Monday, we released What We Heard, a look at everything we've learned through the Create NYC public engagement process since last fall. Over 185,000 residents have participated so far, including more than 25,000 who showed up at more than 400 live events. Our partnership with the city's 3 library systems also helped us collect more than 10,000 surveys. Outreach has also included a phone survey conducted by Siena College Research Institute, which reveals some eye-popping numbers. 97% of respondents said that the arts and culture are an important part of overall quality of life in New York. 92% said that art and culture are important to their lives. 77% of respondents said they wish that they were able to attend more arts and cultural activities. 90% indicated that promoting arts and culture is a key part of protecting the heritage of New Yorkers. We've heard loud and clear that New Yorkers believe that culture is incredibly important to their lives and their communities. Never once in our interactions with tens of thousands of residents did anyone question if our local government should be in the business of supporting arts and culture. Some notable takeaways from the public feedback include calls for equitable distribution of arts and culture across the boroughs, a continue to support the city's existing cultural institutions, to provide quality arts education for students, to support local arts educations to thrive in place, and to promote affordability for all. More information is available at createnyc.org. At this time, we're asking the public to review these proposals and take a poll to rate their priorities and help us identify anything we're missing that's important to them. Please help get the word out to your constituents. Visit the website and take the poll by May 31st to make sure that your priorities are clearly reflected in the plan. I will also be hitting the road. I already have started hitting the road one more time to discuss the contents of what we heard with the public through a series of office hours at library branches in all 5 boroughs. Staten Island was last night. Queens is tomorrow. We had our first one in Staten Island yesterday. You can find out details of the upcoming events at createnyc.org. We hope you will be able to join us. Beyond the content represented in what we heard, the planning process has provided us with a transformative opportunity to reimagine our work based on close reciprocal relationship with the public. We will continue to work closely with our constituents in the 1,000 nonprofit cultural organizations we fund annually. We also want to expand our opportunities for direct feedback from the public. We've seen the power in bringing people together around a common cause. The NYC Artists Coalition formed after we hosted a meeting for DIY arts community this past January, a meeting with Art Dealers Association of America, the Department of Small Business Services, and commercial art galleries has opened up new avenues for collaboration between the city and this vital component of our city's art scene. And the Disability Arts NYC Task Force, called DANT, formed around the plan. It has had a huge influence both on the plan itself and our thinking related to disability arts within the agency. Thank you for your ongoing support for art and culture in New York City. I'm happy to answer questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for your testimony. We appreciate it. As you know, this is always an interesting hearing because we know you from your prior hat and, you know, the many, many years you spent sitting in those white chairs on that side where everyone else is. So while, you know, I think it's incredibly powerful that you're sitting there as commissioner with the wealth of experience of actually having represented such an incredible institution like the Queens Museum. You can also, better than anyone, understand, and I see one clap for the Queens Museum, like way back there.
I know who that is, yes.
Thank you, David Strauss. But the reality is that you also understand more than anyone the challenge of pulling down money. So this is a budget hearing, and one of the biggest issues that we have is for a lot of our nonprofits and our cultural institutions being able to go through the process, and that a year later sometimes money hasn't been certified or signed off on is incredibly complicated. For each of the City Council's initiatives, for what percentage of the designations has initial payments been processed for?
So I will have to get you that answer, but I actually understand I'd like to address the question. Yes. I don't have the statistic. What happened this year with the some of the council initiatives was that it took us a long time to get the payments made. We've been meeting actively with Chair Van Bramer, with City Council Finance. I just saw Jimmy Reyes just now. We just talked about this. We're not going to let that happen again. A lot of these payments were made later in the year. Some of the initiatives we pressed go as usual in the fall. Some of the initiatives got delayed until the winter. There's a complicated set of reasons. We actually had a hearing specifically on that to address it. I think it's not valuable to point fingers or anything at this point. We just have to make sure it doesn't happen again. I'm personally committed to that.
So what are the steps? So how do we not get to what we're, last year?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that first of all, the question of getting all the designations made in a timely manner.
From the council.
Yeah. So just being on top of that, communicating, I think that once, honestly speaking, I'll just speak honestly, we're amongst friends, the public is here. I feel like Jimmy and I Majority Leader Van Bramer and I had a meeting in about December. At that point, I feel things were too far, it was way too far into the fall to have had that meeting. That was the point at which we began to really work together closely between the council, council finance, the chair of the Cultural Committee, my staff, to get this ball rolling. And once the ball got rolling, things got designated. We all
But
worked
how
together.
different was that from other years? That's
The big difference,
because
yeah.
These initiatives, we enhanced initiatives. We didn't create new initiatives.
But the size of the initiatives, the number of designations that had to be made, there were many council members who made their designations on time. I don't want to paint that it was a much bigger, and by the way, congratulations. It is great. I'm so happy those initiatives exist and got bigger. So this is a good thing. What it did was it meant that many council members had a lot of new designations to make. Some, it just, it took a long time. And then there was quite honestly, a very clear policy that we'd always had, which is you have to wait for all the designations to be made within a particular initiative to press go on that initiative. That had been our policy for a long time. That was a dispute that we've had quite publicly, that saying that does it really have to be up to the 100% or 98%. So I think that being on top of it, being aware of exactly where the council initiative, where the holes are, getting the designations made, pressing go as quickly as possible, we will do it. We are aiming for the middle of September.
Okay.
So I think that's our goal. So I'll say it publicly again. I'm personally committed to making that happen.
Okay. The budget response, as the chair, both the chair and I spoke about in our opening statements, the $10 million. It was an amazing, I want to say amazing, it was a good step forward.
Yes.
And actually we were, our thoughts in January, or the plan was, they will baseline the 10 so that we can ask for more. But we're kind of back at the beginning. Why wasn't it baseline? Did you ask for it to be baselined? And our belief is that we should be supporting the cultural institutions at a greater number. But when we kind of start back at asking for just baselining the 10, it just puts us kind of in a different position, especially since we've already committed a significant amount of money from the council side to support the agency through the cultural initiatives.
So, we're right now sort of where we were last year. So that money got added at adoption. It got added, by the mayor, obviously with the cheerleading of city council as well. So, we're still in this budget process. The budget process is, I know, planning to be wrapped up at a relatively early date this year. I know that these discussions are ongoing. I certainly have these discussions every day with my colleagues in city government, and I know that that's happening. So, but that money, that wasn't baselined. We started at the same point last year that we started this year. And I will also say that, one of the great things about this last several years is that we haven't had the budget dance around getting back to zero. So there could be a discussion about additional money. So the budget dance that happened, especially towards the last years of the last administration, were this kind of crushing, and this is when I was sitting on this other side of the, going to try to get back to zero with help from the city council, which always came in to help. So look, it is an ongoing discussion. It's ongoing negotiation. We're hoping for a great outcome.
And I just want to say that while I would agree that we obviously are not doing the budget dance and it's not bringing us back to zero, there is something to be said that we're asking for more than ever from our cultural institutions. We expect them to partner with us at NYCC. The visiting numbers are higher. They've engaged with us on many of our immigrant advocacy, and a lot of the panic and the anxiety that we see in our communities are often the place that people go for some type of reprieve is our cultural institutions. So the cost of living is higher, the cost of running a nonprofit is higher. So when we don't baseline this $10 million, I think is a very bad sign from the administration. And to leave it to adoption puts us in a very, you take away our advocacy to actually expand the 10. So now we have to ask for the 10 when we should be asking for a lot more, because the 10 wasn't the original number. It wasn't the number that would have helped these cultural institutions expand. it was very much appreciated. No one's saying that it's not appreciated, but like, we have to be frank, it wasn't the number that would get them to be where they needed to be. And I just feel like if we do the same thing that we did last year, we're going to end up with the same thing.
So I agree with you that it was interesting because this was the first increase in many, many years. I don't know when the last increase, but probably in a decade or longer. I mean, I'm in my time at the Queens Museum, I didn't see an increase to our funding.
It's a different economic time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sort of went up and down. This is even before 2008. After 2008 is understandable. It went down quite a bit. Everybody understood that. So it was also kind of a surprise to me that it wasn't, it was the least celebrated $10 million increase that had occurred. But I also hear what you're saying about the IDNYC, and I wanted to say that we have heard some encouragement. So one of the big questions of IDNYC was how many members would organizations get in the long run. So you have 1 year of free membership, and then you're asked to renew. And so we've had some more encouraging numbers recently about some of the renewal rates, which does mean that it can give some permanence to the connection to different communities. The IDNYC was a way to increase audiences, to increase openness. It was a great thing for the ID card in general to have the cultural benefit. It's amazing that it reached 1 million people with the card and 500,000 memberships. So I absolutely hear you. I know I've heard from cultural organizations, but there is a benefit also to cultural organizations potentially at the end of the day if they retain enough members to make it worthwhile.
I agree. There is a benefit if they get at least $10 million baseline. Then they can see the benefit. I wanted to talk about the capital commitment rate. Fiscal 2016, the Department of Cultural Affairs committed $109.6 million, or 17% of the annual capital plan of $643.8 million. What has the agency done to improve its capital commitment rate, and what challenges does it face in committing to projects?
So, I mean, there are a couple of different answers to that question, and the way that cultural projects are funded in multi-year cycles, this is sort of a normal thing. We've been working also with our partners at DDC to expedite projects, to get projects moving more quickly. I personally, as you well know, in your district, worked on one of those projects that took a long time to complete. But it was also an amazing project that never could have happened. We at the Queens Museum didn't have a capital unit. So there are big advantages to the way that the partnership works with DDC that are, I think, a little bit under-acknowledged. But this is something, it is vexing that these don't get committed, that the projects take so long. And this is something we're looking at pre-scoping, with working with cultural institutions beforehand to make sure that there's capital readiness, that when we press go on a project, that the organization is ready to go, that's fully funded. There's stuff going on between us and OMB and DDC to try to expedite that.
And of course, I think that there is a role for DDC, and I'd like to remind everyone, DDC was created by this committee.
Yes.
Because it was to expedite projects. But the reality is that every day that DDC takes longer, or that the projects take longer, it only gets more expensive. And there's nothing more frustrating than when a cultural institution comes to you asking you to support a project, and you support it, and then they got to come back to you the following year and say, hey, we need $2 million more for that same project. And then the following year, here, by the way, we're almost there, we just need $4 million more for the same project. It just gets a little frustrating. And I think that we're going to come up to a challenge where we will serve our time in office and never see a project completed. And that is not, I think, the most efficient way to use taxpayer dollars. And it's not that it's getting more costly because you've added a new wing or you're doing something else to the plan. It just is because it's getting more expensive because we're taking longer to build it. And I do believe that, we must, and I got to say, the mayor has agreed that we have to do kind of an overhaul look of this entire process. My question is, within your projects, is it scoping? Is it procurement? Is it the actual construction? Like, where are the bottlenecks, or is it every step
It's
of
everything. Yeah. No, everything you mentioned is the problem.
the way? We gotta throw it all out then.
It is. No, but I'd like to just say that there are great projects that happen on time, on budget. And for example, the waiver tree is just a fantastic project. It was a very complicated project. It was a ship that had, $12 million of repairs that had to be made. It was done in Staten Island. It was done on time. It does happen. There are problems, and one of the things I would say that makes it particularly difficult for us to get these things done on time and on budget is that every single project is completely unique and bespoke. Every cultural organization is completely different. You have visionaries, and I'm not saying I'm a visionary, but we did at the Queen's Museum look at this and say we need to do this, this, and this. Things did, get added. So there was some scope change even within that project to get to the finish line with a great institution that our community deserved. So it's not like even building a school. Schools are the same. Yes, classrooms are a certain size. Police station. These are very, very unique projects that each has their own. So I do think there's some unique challenges in cultural institutions. I absolutely think we need to figure out how to improve on all aspects all the way along in terms of speed.
Okay. And yes, I get you. When we're doing a ground-up project, it's understandable. But when we're trying to fix the HVAC at a cultural institution or the roof at a cultural institution, it shouldn't take 8 years. It just shouldn't. So those are the questions that I'm looking to answer. Obviously, I understand that there's complex plans that need to be thought about. But when we kind of keep hearing the same project that we've been really excited about and just add 2 more million and 2 more million and 4 more million, I just feel like it's going to wane. Eventually, it's going to get kind of old here, and we have to be better at it. We will now hear from Chair Van Bramer.
Could I just say one more thing? So even, and look, I hear you. I hear you, and I hear from the groups. But even on that HVAC or that roof, I was working at PS1 Contemporary Arts Center back in the 80s. We got a new roof. This is a historic building. It was
I know what you're going to say. It's a historic building. It was a special roof,
okay.
roof. I got it. We can do better.
Okay.
We've been joined by Councilmember Cumbo, followed by Councilmember Rodriguez, after we hear from Chair Van Bramer.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Tom. So, Tom, I wanted to ask you if you believe that the threat from Washington is real and that we could see a decrease in federal support for the arts and culture to New York City institutions and organizations.
Absolutely. I think the threat is real. People that I've talked to who know what's going on in Washington, and I think it's, by the way, up for grabs, don't think that these agencies are going to disappear, that the agencies will be intact, but that there will be cuts. Those cuts are very substantial. Corporation for Public Broadcasting, IMLS, NEA, NEH, all that put together is $50 million in New York City. It's a lot of money. About 29 million of it is directly to cultural institutions. But when I've talked to the science-based institutions, there was one institution I was talking to recently that gets funding from 6 federal agencies that are slated for complete elimination right now. So it's not just that $50 million, it's the, as you said, NSF and other science. Right. So yes, the threat is real.
So we could be looking at tens of millions of dollars in funding cuts to our New York City cultural organizations just from the federal government alone. Then, are you also seeing a decrease in private support, some foundational support, certainly corporate support for our cultural organizations, large and small, as well?
So, first of all, with the federal cuts, I think the thing is we need to fight. It's not over. That's not definitely going to happen. And I think that, the rally, obviously, that you had and the activism that people are involved in has to fight that. We can't think of that as inevitable. That's true for housing. That's true for everything else. Okay. What we've seen, and we've done some focus groups around the cultural plan, is that corporate philanthropy in arts and culture is decreasing. But the other, so individuals, and foundations are doing better than the corporate sector. A lot of the corporate sector is putting money more into sort of marketing schemes, et cetera. There are corporations, we're very actively involved in talking to a group of corporate philanthropies. Like Deutsche Bank is still giving money, that, as long as the bank is doing okay. But so I think that's again something that we all have to be focusing on and not think of it as inevitable that corporations turn their backs on arts and cultural programs.
Sure.
But it is happening, yes.
Right. So just to go back, I mean, yes, no, I think we're going to resist President Trump and his assault on culture and the arts with everything we've got. And we're going to continue, just like all the folks in this audience do every day, which is to figure out how to get more money for their organizations, how to appeal to philanthropists and philanthropic organizations. But putting it all together, what we've seen is a decrease in a lot of private support. We have an assault on the arts on the federal level. And all of this to say that we should do more, and these groups need more, because what they've been doing is simply doing more with less. And when you factor in inflation over the years and all the things that they've struggled with, we need the 40 million, right, to bring them to a place where they need to be. The 10 million was a significant victory on top of the 30 million that the City Council alone puts in to culture and the arts. But we need to do better, and this has got to be the year, right? I mean, this is really the year where we need to see the funding baseline. The chair asked about the lack of baselining, the $10 million. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm just interested to hear from you, because I don't think you definitively answered the chair's question on why the administration chose not to baseline that 10 million. And I want to hear from you, because I know your personal answer to this question. But insofar as folks might feel like that's a statement of values itself, right?
Well, I mean,
speak to that on behalf of the administration, which clearly put money in last year, understanding the value of the arts, but then we didn't see the baseline.
Right. So, I mean, I think, again, this year's budget, the year we're in, is the largest arts and cultural budget any city in America has ever seen, adjusted for inflation. That's a combination of a lot of great stuff the City Council did, which by nature is not baselined. It's including the $10 million that the administration put in. So, I mean, I think to say the statement of values is we just had the biggest cultural budget any city ever had. That's something to celebrate. We have a very large cultural budget in the executive budget, and we're waiting for, to see what happens at adoption. So I believe that this administration cares about arts and culture. I talk to my colleagues in government all the time. I also want to say, just not to belabor these with a long answer, there's a lot of other stuff happening in arts and culture in government that needs to be acknowledged. For example, the $23 million, which was pushed forward by the council but put in as baseline in the Department of Education's budget, which has led to hundreds of new art teachers all over the city. And when we did our cultural plan, the number one thing that came up most often was better arts education in the public school system. That's what New Yorkers' number one concern. Mm-hmm. So that's money. That's bigger than the cultural budget of most cities, as is the council's initiatives. So that's a baseline change that is a belief by one of the great advocates for arts and culture in New York City, which is the chancellor of the Department of Education. She cares about arts education in a way that hasn't been seen in the public school system in a generation. So I just want to say that there are other ways you can look at the value statement. We have the largest arts and cultural budget ever, and all this other good stuff is happening at other agencies. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to bring up our partnership with the Administration for Children's Services, for example.
Don't dispute any of that. I would just, for the record, want to say that the $92 million for arts and education was in this council's budget response to the mayor. We were the first ones to call for that, and thrilled, of course,
Yes.
that the mayor saw fit to put it in the budget. But I just want to say, I think the council has been leading the charge for culture and the arts for a very long time, and insisting that this be a priority, and even a higher priority, because I think it's true. There's a greater budget for arts and culture in this city than any other in the United States, and that's as it should be, because we are the greatest city in the United States, right? And we have the capacity to do more. I think that's the central question: is if the will is there, there's the capacity to do even more, to be even greater, to allow these folks to get that much more done. I think that's really, really important, and I don't think you disagree. And are there active discussions? Obviously, you can't speak to the nature of the discussions, but I think it would be helpful for all of us to know that this $40 million ask, the baselining of the $10 million, the valuing of culture and the arts, is an active budgetary discussion within the administration with you and all of those who you're working with, up to and including the mayor.
Yes.
And how's that going, Tom?
We have active discussions. I mean, what can I say? I think that again, people take it seriously. It is no joke. It's an important part of the city. It's an important part of the economy. It's an important part of communities. So it is actively under discussion.
And I know that the city is projecting a decrease in some tourism as a result of the nonsense that's going on in D.C. But I want to ask you also to speak to the financial impact of the arts and culture in the city of New York. Because as I said earlier, I long believe that though it's impossible to quantify the value of the arts, because impacting one child's life is priceless, right? So it's silly to even attempt it. But there is an economic value, and our cultural sector spins off billions in revenue for the city of New York that then allows us to even fund other programs, which are incredibly valuable. So maybe you can speak to that, and also speak to the importance and the value that the administration places on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that, look, out of the tens of millions of tourists, 60 million tourists, over half of them come either as their first or second reason for arts and culture. This is all, information gathered by NYC and Company. And that is undeniable. The institutions that draw huge numbers of tourists are important. I think that this whole idea of what to do about the question of decreasing tourism from abroad, one of the answers is increasing tourism domestically, and this is something that NYC and Company has been working on. I will say also that the administration has been very supportive of NYC and Company in those, tourism efforts. So that has been studied for decades. The arts and culture as drivers of the numbers of jobs, 250,000 jobs, we think, in New York City are directly or indirectly supported by the arts. But then also, and I don't want to go into too depth, but the social impact of the arts project that was commissioned this year showed that arts and culture are associated with lots of other good outcomes in low-income communities: better health, education, and safety in those communities. So I think yes, tourism, yes, jobs, but also yes, quality of life in all communities.
So just a couple more questions. Number one, if the funding isn't restored, then organizations in the city would experience a cut, right? Which, in my mind, is unfathomable in a time when there are resources. They're not unlimited, but that's where we really are at, right? That's where these organizations really are at. Some experienced a 12% increase, some a 6% increase, but folks got an increase. And if we don't do that again, at a minimum, they will be cut this year. And then I go to the 40 million. What do you think would be the benefit to the city of New York if we realized that 40 million? And could you spend that, could we as a city spend that in a way that further enriches and empowers people of the city of New York?
So yes, I'm confident that if the $40 million increase occurs, that there are tremendous ways it would stabilize organizations' budgets, it would be great for tourism, et cetera. So all those good things that are happening, you would have more of it. So yes, and I think you ask any commissioner, if your agency were to, add a certain amount of money to, if you ask Polly over at DOT, could you spend the money to do more paving of more roads, she would say yes. So the other thing, and it's interesting because, of course, I've been on the other side of this. We had a baseline budget. We increased it by $10 million. If that money goes away, is it a cut or is it going back? So this is, obviously I think I know what everybody in that side of the room thinks. But it is a definitional issue. So we added money to the budget. It wasn't baseline. Obviously, it is seen by the groups as a cut because they simply define it as how much money you got last year versus this year. Yes.
So let me just say, it's not only the people over there who would see it as a cut.
People over here.
I am with them, and we believe, speaking for myself, that if that $10 million wasn't restored, it is a cut, Tom, Commissioner. It is a very real cut for these organizations who are struggling to make it today and desperately need not just that money restored to their budgets, but in fact need more. So
I understand that everybody, except for perhaps a small group over here who work for me, define it as a cut.
Yes.
No, so I get it. And so the definition is what you got last year versus what you got this year. It's a cut. I got it.
Yeah, no one has more respect for you than I think the three council members who are here. I just don't want to engage in semantics.
Yep.
Right, sort of like acrobatics, right, with words, when I think we all really know that it's a cut, right? And I say that with a great deal of respect and fondness for you, as you know. But like, we need to get this funding. We should baseline it, and we really have to go further. So I just want to say that and thank the chair.
Thank you, Chair Van Bramer. We've been joined by Councilmember Gibson, and we will now hear from Councilmember Cumbo. Has her own delegation here today.
I just want to acknowledge that there are several groups in my district that I see here today. I see the Brooklyn Academy of Music. Oh, wow. I see the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. We're all one family. I saw the Brooklyn Children's Museum. Oh, I love that. And I see our Brooklyn Music School front and center. Awesome. We're all one family here in the 35th District. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you so much for being here. Just wanted to open up questions in terms of, do we know how much, or have we done a survey to find out how many organizations that we service are actually receiving federal funding? So how many are getting NEH funding, NEA funding, IMLS funding? Do we know what the impact of potential cuts will be, as it will impact many of the organizations that we service?
So we have the numbers, and we can give them to you, of exactly how much money is coming from each of those agencies to New York City organizations. I don't have the list. I mean, actually, if you look at the website of those, you can look down at the grantees, but we have the aggregate number. We know that $28 million between IMLS, NEA, and NEH are coming to New York City organizations last year.
Do we have an understanding of what federal cuts will actually look like? Do we understand that number?
So, no, I mean, the thing is that the budget proposed by the Trump administration cuts the agencies to zero. The agencies don't exist anymore. That, in the continuing resolution that was passed through November, several weeks ago, NEA got a small increase. So NEA is still alive and well, is giving out grants. I mean, all those agencies did. So it's going to be part of a negotiation in the fall. And again, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. I do think that one of the only places you will see on a regular basis Republicans and Democrats sitting down together towards a goal is on cultural boards. I think there's lots of Republican support all over America for culture. And there are plenty of, or some Congress people have already come out from the Republican side to say that they don't think that these agencies should be eliminated. So I actually don't think they will be. I'm an optimist, but that's what other people, but there are good possibilities of cuts rather than elimination of the agencies. That's what I think.
Do we have a contingency plan here in New York City for if these budget cuts should be as drastic as they're proposed to be at this time?
So are you saying, do we have a way to
a New York
mitigate
City
those
plan
cuts?
in
I mean,
terms
I
of
think
like discussions in terms of how we're shoring up NYCHA, understanding that there are going to be significant cuts there. Also our healthcare system, understanding what we need to do around women's issues and Planned Parenthood. There are discussions as far as contingency, as far as how much we as a city can put forward in resources to make these different entities whole again in some way.
So no, we have not created a contingency plan around the eventuality of cultural cuts, but that's an interesting idea if you're saying this is happening in these other agencies. I think what we're saying, and I think what has been said by the mayor, et cetera, is we don't take for granted that these cuts are going to happen. We have to advocate on behalf of their not happening, that's something we've been doing actively. But I would seek the guidance of other agencies, I guess. So you're saying that those contingency plans are in place in other agencies? Yeah, interesting.
When I was sitting in the white chairs, similar to you, we used to talk a lot about there are 800 or so organizations, and I can't remember the exact number, that receive programmatic support. And now that number seems to be increased to over 1,000. So from when we first took office in this term, and you as well, from 2014 to 2017, do you know the increase in the amount of organizations? Because the CIG group does not expand.
Yeah, I think it
but
actually...
the programmatic groups, it seems or appears to have expanded.
Okay, so first of all, I mentioned in my testimony there are panels going, the entire CDF crew is back over at the agency. I think that the number of applications and the number of groups being funded has remained pretty steady over the last 3 years. But I can get back to you with the exact statistics. That hasn't increased in greatly in numbers. And
But it has increased, though.
I don't think so, but I would have to get you the numbers.
Because the challenge, again, as Councilmember Van Bramer as well as Chair Ferreras has brought up, is the challenge that we're stagnant at this $10 million number. And every other agency primarily that comes here is coming here with funding that's already been placed in the executive budget, that's already been baselined. And it seems this is the only agency where we are questioning what is going to be the future of the organizations as far as future funding, moving forward, understanding how to plan their budgets, staffing, and all of those aspects. I'm very concerned about, as everyone has brought up, the $10 million mark, because we're fighting to maintain $10 million when the original number was $40 million. And so perhaps that was the reason for the not so excited
For sure. Yeah.
victory thank you lap that maybe the agency was looking for, but it was appreciated, but also not anticipated that that's what the increase would be.
Yes, I think you're absolutely correct.
What can we do ultimately to get to where we need to be? We've got to do something. This is not, I want to be as professional about it as possible, but we've got to make sure that we shore up these organizations, because this is This is the lifeline. This is the bloodline of New York City. This is what New York City is based off. It's based off of art and culture. It's based off of people traveling here from all over the world. It's based on the restaurants that are going to benefit from it. It's based on real estate industry that say, move next to the Brooklyn Academy of Music. It's based on all of these different things. But yet, we're debating about $10 million, and it's just not right.
So I hear you, and I understand what you're saying. That we're debating about the additional $10 million that was put into the budget last year. There's, if the council, initiatives happen as we expect they will, there's still $160 or $170 million in our expense budget, and last year there was an additional $150 million of capital, so $300 million. It's not that we have pulled the plug on funding, it's that there's this additional $10 million that's being, hoped to be restored. But the $300 million is, again, by far, we're the largest city in America, but that's a very high budget per capita compared to other cities. And that doesn't mean that we couldn't spend the money or that
there's no other city like New York, and there's no other city with the cultural resources and institutions that we have. I love the other cities, they're great, but there's no place like New York City.
Agreed. So I agree with that, but I'm just saying that it's not that the administration is proposing a budget that abandons arts and culture, even if the $10 million is not put in there. I understand the value of the $10 million. I have heard it from the groups extensively. I know that they are wanting and in some cases counting on that money. So I don't want to diminish that at all. But I also just want to say that there is a lot of money in the budget, that a lot of the core services that the sector supports are still being supported by both the council, by the administration.
I'm just going to close on that one and just say that the $40 million that was originally what was proposed is really what we should be talking about here. We should be talking about the $40 million because what we're seeing with this federal administration and significant cuts that are coming our way and this uncertainty about what's going to happen to $10 million, it's really an opportunity for us to shore up these organizations and give them the confidence to move forward, especially in an administration where a city like New York relies heavily on tourism, heavily on people coming to the city. We need to make sure that our organizations and our economy continue to grow, and the only way we can do that is through investing in our organizations, shoring them up, making them whole, and letting them know we appreciate what you give to this city and what you do for this city, and we wouldn't be New York City if we didn't have that. I know my time is up, and I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Council Member. And look, we've probably verbalized it in every way possible. The reality is that we were hopeful that we wouldn't be talking about $10 million, that we would be talking about 20 or 30 or the actual 40 that is what was projected. And what we have done is that we're essentially talking about, once again, the $10 million that the culturals have already proven that they need, and already proven that can be used, and already proven what they needed to prove. So that is why you see this sense of urgency and almost dismay, because this shouldn't have been a topic of conversation for our budget in fiscal 18. So we will continue to push. I know the chair wanted to make some closing remarks before we bring this committee hearing to adjourn.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And again, I want to say thank you to all of you for being with us today, and say to the Commissioner that as you go about your internal advocacy, you know that you have this council pushing incredibly hard. And just as this council last year allocated almost $30 million of our council initiative money towards culture and the arts, so too do we want the administration to come in with numbers that look like that. And if we were to do that and baseline it, then I think we would see a celebration from the arts community that we have never seen before, right?
Because we could put on a party for you.
Yeah. And that would be a moment. So I think both the chair, myself, and Councilmember Cumbo are all speaking with one voice here and saying that the $10 million was a good and welcome addition. And I would also add that not only have they proven that it's useful and that it can be used, it's also been spent, right, in many ways, already spent. And so to not see that funding again would very much be a cut, because they have that money is used and used well already. So look forward to the next couple of weeks and a good result for culture and the arts. And obviously this council has demonstrated time and time again its fierce commitment to this community, one obviously that I know you share our passion for. So thank you, but also I want to thank all the advocates for being here and fighting the good fight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And that is a reminder, we look forward to seeing you here on May 25th, which is when the public can come and testify right here in this room. It's the last day of budget hearings at about 1 p.m. That concludes today's hearing. Thank you again to Commissioner Finkelpearl for being with us today. I also would like to once again thank my co-chair for today's hearings, Majority Leader Van Bramer and Councilmember King, and the members of their committee. For those of you that cannot come to the public testimony, you can submit your testimony on the council's website, council.nyc.gov/budget/testimony, and the staff will make it a part of the official record. The Finance Committee will resume budget hearings on Monday in this room at 10 a.m. in the committee with the Committee on Public Safety to hear from the NYPD, followed by our district attorneys. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and with that said, we will now call this hearing adjourned.